Martin Luther King Jr. and his spirit live within all of us. Thank God for the blessing of his life and his leadership and his commitment. What manner of man was this? May we make ourselves worthy to carry on his dream and create a beloved community.
Hello, Garner. Hello. My name is Buddy Gupton. I'm the mayor of Garner, and I'm delighted to share this wonderful day with you here today. Some of us took a little walk around in memorial of the many marches that Dr. King led to get us in the mood here. And the sun is shining now, even more than it was, and your faces are shining. What else could we ask for? Just a wonderful day to be here. I can't tell you the joy it brings me personally to be here at this place on this day and in honor of Dr. King. I went to school right here myself. This was the auditorium, though it wasn't quite as nice as it is now. The classrooms weren't quite as nice, but the people were. And through the years, the people have been the thing that's made Garner special. We might not be the prettiest or newest community, but we are a village where we know our neighbors and we help each other. And this MLK celebration is just another great grassroots movement. 14 years ago or more, many of the people that you'll see later today got together and said, let's make this a very special day. They've worked together. The town has gotten to be part of it. The Garner Performing Arts Center has jumped on top to try to make it the great thing that it is. But it was a grassroots movement. It was the people saying, yes, let's do this. And they didn't care whether they got a grant or funding. They were going to make it happen, and it's just gotten better and better. So my hat is off to all of those folks. Today, before coming over, my wife reminded me of one of her favorite quotes from Dr. King. And he said, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish like fools. And I like to think that Garner has learned how to work together as brothers, and this is just another example. It's my pleasure to be part of this. Thank you for letting me be here. We have a very exciting list of performers and participants and contributors today that really cover the spectrum from art and music and interpretation and news is really, really going to be interesting. Not to mention video performances and even a slideshow with some historic stuff. So you're in for a treat. I'm very honored to introduce three of the first things, and we'll come back. Dwight told me introduce three and sit down, and then come back and introduce three more. They'll know what to do. So, I'll be introducing Representative Deborah Ross and a video about the co-founders of this, and then the male chorus from Maple Temple United Church. But I really want to give a special shout out to a longtime friend of Garner, and that's Representative Deborah Ross, U.S. Representative for the North Carolina's 13th Congressional District. You've read in the news how they move those little lines once in a while down here in North Carolina about which district you're in. And Deborah has been one of our most consistent advocates, and we're very glad to have her officially, or for us to be very officially back in her fold at this time. She's done wonderful things for us. The most recent and most spectacular and meaningful to me is big help with our downtown Garner. We have a kind of an odd place there at Rand Road where it goes back between the mural back to Aristotle's and the event center. And under the parking tower, under the water tower back there, there's been some parking. But she helped us secure a very large, I'm talking $1 million plus grant from the federal government to turn that into a wonderful asset, to make that another gateway to Garner, a place to park to help tell our story. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Ross.
Thank you so much, Mayor Gupton, and it's a true honor to be back in Garner today to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was here, I believe, at the inaugural celebration, and it's just a wonderful way to honor his legacy and to honor this extraordinary community. As Mayor Gupton told you, I'm back. Your new district, though, is not unlucky 13, it's 2. So you're now in the 2nd Congressional District, and I know it's confusing to keep up with, but I believe you'll be in the 2nd Congressional District for a while, and that warms my heart because I represented Garner in the state legislature, in Congress my first term, and I hope to represent Garner for a very, very long time. As I said, I served this community for more than a decade in the General Assembly, and that's when you had your initial celebration. And again, once again, we're surrounded by so many Garner community leaders who are continuing Dr. King's fight for equality and justice for all. Of course, we wouldn't even be here today having this type of celebration if it hadn't been for Helen Phillips. Without Mrs. Phillips' advocacy, fearlessness, and determination, we would not be witness to the incredible progress we've seen in Garner and throughout Wake County over the past decades. According to the Garner News, quoting Mrs. Phillips, she told herself, "One day, Helen, you'll be able to sit where you want to sit. You won't have to go through the back door. You'll have the freedom of speech. And once I got the freedom of speech, I've been speaking ever since." And as most of you know, we lost Helen Phillips during the pandemic, but her spirit is going to hover over not just this amazing celebration, but the whole Garner community, because she is the spirit of Dr. King and the spirit of community. So today, we're continuing her legacy by using our voice to speak up and fight for change. This year is a more somber celebration because tomorrow we'll have a new president who has frequently used his power to roll back civil rights and the freedom that generations of Black Americans like Helen Phillips fought for, and many of them sacrificed and died for. But I know that this community won't give up Dr. King's fight for progress in the face of those who might try to undermine it. And on MLK weekend, I always come back to a line from Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. He wrote, "We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people." Now, and he was writing that to the preachers, folks, now more than ever, we can't afford to be silent. We cannot sit idly by while leaders, wherever they might be, try to take us back to an era where Americans face discrimination because of the color of their skin, their gender, their sexual orientation, their country of origin, and so much more. I know that Garner will be leading our long march toward justice. We will be loud and proud, and we will walk in the footsteps of Helen Phillips and Dr. King and the leaders who have paved the way to progress. Thank you again for the honor of joining you today, and I'm really looking forward to the entire program. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon. I am Sherry Phillips. I am here to talk to you this afternoon about two prominent members of the town of Garner. One being my mom, Helen S. Phillips, and the other being the former mayor, Ronnie Williams. My mom, Helen S. Phillips, was born on January 15, 1927. She was always proud of the fact that she shared a birthday with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man she considered the greatest American who ever lived. Although Mom never got elected to public office, nor was she rich or famous, she was someone who was delighted in standing up for the rights of others and speaking the truth of power, and being a voice for many throughout the Garner community. Born a sharecropper's daughter, Mom lived during the time when African Americans were considered second-class citizens, or worse, less than human. She lived through Jim Crow, facing discrimination, racism, and then in the segregated Wake County. Mom was very active in local politics, and she made sure to make her opinions known. In an interview with the late Mayor Williams, when she was honored during the Black History Month, Mayor Williams told me that my mom would call him several times during the week, in which I knew she did because she and I lived together. He appreciated her motherly support, but mostly important, Mayor Williams praised my mom for her strong commitment to Garner, her citizen activism, and her willingness to persevere in her causes. She may not win every battle, but she's working hard toward winning the war, Williams always said. My mom married my dad, Graham G. Phillips, on March 4th, 1953. She was a mother of 8. She loved us and she reared us in a very strict home. My mom was very proud of the town of Garner. She attended many town council meetings to ensure that her voice was heard and that the voices of the citizens of the Garner were heard. My mom also loved gardening, which consisted of planting flowers, mowing the lawn, and ensuring each of her flowers were strategically placed. My mom and Mayor Williams had a very special relationship. The two of them would talk sometimes for hours on the phone about the town of Garner, about the things that were going on in the town of Garner and her concerns with the town of Garner. The two of them were very close and they had a lot of respect for one another. Mayor Williams served as mayor from 2005 until last December when he was succeeded by current mayor Ken Marshburn. Before being elected, Mayor Williams had served for 20 years on Garner's Board of Aldermen. During the Garner natives' more than 3 decades of public service, the town blossomed from a sleepy community along a rail line to a dynamic, fast-growing suburb. Under Mayor Williams' leadership, Garner experienced a transformation that brought prosperity and opportunity while maintaining our town's unique charm and character. And now a tribute to my mother, Helen S. Phillips, and former Mayor Ronnie S. Williams.
You have long been known, even as I was growing up in Garner, I knew who Helen Phillips was because you made yourself become a community activist. Why?
I didn't know I was a community activist.
That's what they told me. I kept hearing your name. You remember this discussion we had about the sidewalks?
Yeah. Well, you know what? After I realized I had made a mistake by not going on to school, getting an education. So I said, I got to do the next best thing. My mama said, if you're going to be a floor sweeper, sweep it good. And after I saw what was happening to Martin Luther King, and he died and got beat up so we could go and vote. So I said to myself, no matter what, I'm going to speak out for my people regardless.
You were instrumental and part of the committee that put together the Martin Luther King celebration.
Well,
talk about that, and we won the front page of the New Observer for our ceremony this time.
Yeah.
Talk about that. And tell the viewers why it's important that we continue to do that.
Because Martin Luther King, he was a God-sent man. And just like they did God back in the day, they stoned him, they hung him high, they pushed him in the side, and he died. And the third day he rose. Martin Luther King didn't rise, but he left his legacy here for us to follow. He paved the way for the minorities, and not only minorities, white people too. He wanted everybody to get along and try to understand each other. So I just think, a person asked me what I thought about it. Mr. Mayor, can I use your name? You asked me what I thought about it, and what did I tell you? You said, I told you, I said, Mr. Mayor, we will work with you the best we can. I said, but do you know what you're getting yourself in? And so we've been working, and every one we have, it gets better and better.
I agree with you.
I'm here today to tell you have a job. That job with it carries no paycheck, carries no benefits, and it carries no vacation. Your job is to continue the work of Dr. King and do it without violence, do it with compassion, love, and courage. That was his way. It included doing away with hate, segregation, injustice, and discrimination. It will require change. There's still work to be done.
As we celebrate the work and the life of Dr. King, I'm reminded of taking a trip with kids in the back seat. And 30 minutes into that trip, one of the kids will ask, "Are we there yet?" That question is the theme of my brief remarks this afternoon. In terms of racial justice and equality, we have to ask ourselves, are we there yet?
I'm just before you today to tell you in the 21st century why we are still marching. The reality is we have not reached our destination until the senseless killing of our black men, women stop, until there's fairness where redistricting lines are drawn to benefit not just one political party, until there's fairness in the judicial system, until there's economy, work for the poor and just not the powerful and the wealthy, until racial profiling stops our ethnic young people. We will continue to march. In the words of the Black National Anthem, let us march on. Don't give up. March on till the victory is won.
We're glad to be here with y'all to celebrate this day. gonna make it for the Lord. I'm gonna make it for Jesus. Yes, I'm gonna make it for the Lord. I'm gonna make it. 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 Don't forget to be around the world. It gets a little higher, 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 higher.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. That was so good. We want you to come back in just a moment and do another tune for us, if you don't mind. That was great. In the meantime, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Benjamin Stewart. He's an alumnus of North Warren High School, but he is a student of the Julius Rosenwald school system that was so critical to educating young black children in the last century. He can give you something, he can give you some history on it, but one of the most interesting things about it is we have a Rosenwald school here in Garner. And with that, Mr. Stewart, I'm going to ask you to give us a little more background on this institution. Let's give a big Garner welcome to Mr. Benjamin Stewart.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today and being a part of this. Representative Ross mentioned the fact that we're here today to celebrate the life and legacy of a person who represented hope in the midst of hopelessness concerning justice and equality for Black Americans. Well, I want to briefly share with you this afternoon the story of the Rosenwald schools who represented hope in the midst of hopelessness in regards to education for Black Americans. Now, I was told by Wilma to be brief. And remember when they had the presidential debates, how they would cut your mic off? So she told me she was going to cut my mic off when my time was up. Okay? But let me just start off by setting the stage for what it is that we're going to be talking about. Back in 1830, there was some concern about education for blacks and how it would cause unrest among the enslaved people. And as a result of that concern, in 1930, the North Carolina General Assembly passed a law making it illegal to teach black people to read or write. And in the 1850 century, in the 1850 census, you can see data that shows that at that time, approximately 20% of white people attended schools. Approximately 1% of freed people of color attended school, and 52 of those 217 people who attended school, who were free people of color, attended school here in Raleigh. And surprise, 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 no enslaved people were in attendance at that point in time. Now, after the war, after the Civil War, there was a glimmer of hope because the General Assembly back in 1868, okay, they passed a law. The State Constitutional Convention adopted a universal system of education for the state of North Carolina, meaning that all people would be guaranteed the right of an education. However, that didn't last very long, because in 1875, that state constitutional convention mandated segregated schools. And we all know the results of that. It was segregated, supposedly equal, but it wasn't. Disparities existed in terms of funding. For example, in Newbern, North Carolina, $11 was spent per white student, while $5 was spent for a black student. The school term, which was 4 months, but if it was cotton picking time or other times when people were needed in the fields, in the black schools, the school closed for weeks or months until the work got done. In terms of teacher pay, a comparable teacher in a black school received $20 a month less than their counterpart in the white school. And classrooms, overcrowding, as this picture would indicate, overcrowded conditions in black schools. And supplies, at best, were used and hand-me-downs, at worst, non-existent. So this was the situation that faced Booker T. Washington at the end of the 18th century, or the 19th century, I guess it was, and the beginning of the 20th century. Booker T. Washington was born a slave in Virginia, and he attended Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute, now known as Hampton University. And from there he attended Wayland Seminary. But at the age of 25, he became the president of Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. Now in 1911, he was looking for a wealthy person from the area of Chicago to become a member of his board of trustees. And a mutual friend suggested a man by the name of Julius Rosenwald. And in 1911, he set up a meeting between Rosenwald and Washington. At that meeting, Washington invited Rosenwald to come take a tour of the campus at Tuskegee. And he did. And he was impressed, and on November 25 of 1911, he wrote a letter to Booker T. Washington, he being Julius Rosenwald, saying that he would accept a position on his board of trustees. So in 1912, Rosenwald, who was the son of a Jewish immigrant family, became a member of the board of trustees at Tuskegee. Now, Rosenwald was part owner as well as president of Sears and Roebuck Company. Don't know how many of you in here are as old as I am and can remember the days of Sears and Roebuck. But in its day, Sears and Roebuck was like Amazon is today, except that they weren't online, okay? All of their business, or I shouldn't say all of their business, but a majority of their business was transacted via mail, a catalog. I can remember my grandmother would receive a big, thick Sears and Roebuck catalog in the spring and in the fall. And anything you wanted, if it wasn't in that Sears and Roebuck catalog, you didn't need it. Okay? So, but anyway, he became a member of the Board of Trustees there at Tuskegee. Now, in 1912, Rosenwald turned 50 years of age. And what he did as a gift to himself, as a birthday gift to himself, he donated $25,000 to the teacher education program at Tuskegee. At the end of the year, there was $2,800 of that money left. So Booker T. Washington went to Rosenwald and said, hey, I know that you gave this money for teacher education here at Tuskegee, but what I'd like to do is to take that $2,800 and I can build 6 one-room schoolhouses. Because the state of education for black children here in Alabama is not good. Kids are either going to school in church basements or dilapidated shacks or maybe Masonic lodge halls. So he was given permission to use that money to build those 6 schools. And over the next 2 years, that's exactly what he did. And as a result of his work, and by the way, Robert Taylor, a black person that was on the faculty there at Tuskegee, was the architect for this. He was the first black to graduate from MIT, okay? And so as a result of this, Rosenwald in 1917 decided that he was going to set up a fund that would assist with the building of schools across the southeastern part of the United States for black students. As a result of that commitment on his part, more than 5,300 schools were built in 15 states across the southeastern part of the country. Now, if you want to look at total spending, that cost them at that time approximately $28 million. But if you wanted to look at it in terms of today's money, taking into account for inflation and everything, it's $500 million that was contributed to by the Rosenwald Fund to assist in the building of black schools for black kids across the southeastern part of the United States. But the other part of this, though, is that one of the requirements or criteria for him participating and helping to build those schools was that the black community had to have some skin in the game. So it was a requirement that the black community spend at least or contribute at least 1/3 or 1/4 to 1/3 of the cost of the building. So that ended up meaning that black people actually paid more. Black people contributed more to the building of those schools than the Rosenwald Fund. I graduated from a black high school that was a Rosenwald school. The original building, which you see there, and that's not the building, I'm not that old that I didn't graduate from that building in high school, okay? Even though I may look it. But anyway, the original building cost $8,500. The black community contributed more than $2,000 in cash. Now, how did they do that? I mean, that was a great sum back in those days. The key thing was a fundraiser. And at that time, the main fundraiser was Brundage stew. Right? So you would get a quart. You would sell it by the quart. I can remember my grandfather cooking Brundage stew in his big black cauldron or pot. But anyway, a quart of that's a quarter. That's a quarter. That's what it would sell for. Think how many quarts of Brundage stew you have to sell to get $2,000. The other part of it is that these schools, between the time the Rosenwald Foundation went out of business in 1932, between 1917 and 1932, approximately 600, a little more than 600,000 students went through those schools. And most of those schools, my school was different. My school was a high school, a larger school. But I'm going to show you a school that's here in Garner that was a three-classroom school. And most of the schools were like that. North Carolina had the most Rosenwald schools, 813 schools. The first Rosenwald school in North Carolina was in 1915, Warren Grove School in Chowan County. Halifax County had the most Rosenwald schools of any county, 46. There were 26 in Wake County. Okay? And one of the first was St. Matthew's, which is still in existence today by the St. Matthew's Church over on Lewisburg Road. Okay? I'm gonna guess it. Am I cut off? Can you hear me? Hey, see, Wilbur's coming at me from a different direction. She told me she's going to cut my mic off, but actually what she did was stop my presentation from going. But I'm fairly close to the end, and this is the last slide that I wanted to show you. But this is Panther Branch. This Wilmer's Church, Juniper Level, was instrumental in the restoration of that school. And you can see how see the pot-bellied stove there, the desk of the period are there. So that's what a typical Rosenwald, 1, 2 to 3 classroom Rosenwald school would look like during this time frame. So the thing was, again, this is one of 5 that still exist. I mentioned St. Matthew's as another one that still exists here in Wake County. And this particular one is on the National Register of Historic Places. So if you get a chance and would like to, see Wilmot, and I'm sure that they would be happy to give you a tour of the school. Just let you look at and see how things were back in the early to middle parts of the 20th century. Now, a byproduct of the Rosenwald schools, not only did it provide hope in the midst of hopelessness in terms of education for the kids, but it provided hope in the midst of hopelessness for the black community as well. Because people took pride in the fact that they had a good school. I mean, if you read some of the things, the reports, Rosenwald was not a hands-off person. He didn't say, here's your school, good luck and goodbye. But every so often, people from the foundation would come around and look at what it was that you were doing there in the school. And if you would read some of the reports and hear about, how people had made curtains and things like that to make the school more friendly, if you will, user-friendly. But there was pride in those schools. And this is the hope that the Rosenwald schools provided to those who were in school as well as those who were out of school. Thank you.
My friends, we are in for a treat. The Reverend Dr. Vanessa Hawkins brings much to us, much experience. She's a native North Carolinian from Henderson. She went to North Carolina Central. She's an ordained pastor. She's been head of the local presbytery, which oversees all the preachers like me that are Presbyterian. She has a PhD degree from the interdisciplinary studies at Berkeley, California. She's a graduate of Union Presbyterian Seminary in Richmond, Johnson C. Smith, also San Francisco Presbyterian Seminary. She's a specialist in helping congregations when pastors leave and a new pastor needs to come to make a good transition. She's been a mission worker in South Africa and has experience there. I could go on, but the main thing about her is her heart, her beautiful, wonderful heart, and her care for justice and the dream of Dr. King. Welcome, Dr. Vanessa Hawkins.
Let me just say, first of all, that it is indeed a pleasure to be here, to have this opportunity to speak to you about hope in the midst of hopelessness. And I want to start out this conversation just reminding us of Dr. King's message around, I have a dream. There's a quote in his message, and if I get too low, just raise your hand, because I know sometimes my voice will go down, but there's a section in that dream message where he says, I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. This is our hope. And as we all know, Dr. King stood firm in his belief for civil rights in the midst of adamant resistance, in the midst of adamant injustice and hatred. And as we all know, he was assassinated before this dream was fully realized. One important concern that's really been lifted up with the previous speakers for African Americans was this issue of equal education. Desegregation was one of the many dreams that we had, along with better housing, economic equity, and more career opportunities. Equity was the consummate aspiration, but as we all know, dreams come with a price. Now, like many of you, I'm going to say maybe half of this room, you were one of the first ones to deal with desegregation. Henderson, North Carolina didn't begin the process of desegregation until the 70s, early 1970s. My first engagement of it was they took all the black students and sent them to what was formerly a white school building. The second experiment they did was they put us, black and whites, together. I think I was in the 6th grade by that time. And so when I get into the 6th grade, I have my first white teacher. And unfortunately, he came with a particular bias. He absolutely hated the black students. And this teacher, and I've learned, I ended up doing my dissertation on this experience, but, and found out that there were quite a few teachers who did this. He divided the room with the white students over here and the black students over there, and there was this invisible line that we were not allowed to cross. And that year, because of his bias, he ostracized, alienated, shamed all the black kids, and for the first time in many of our lives, we were beaten in classroom. There was a black child that was beaten in that classroom almost every day. The school that we were a part of was very similar to the schools that we just looked at. I went to Carver Elementary School, and it was the first school that was built for black students that was more than just one classroom. So I'm in a building that I grew up in, had been loved in by my teachers. Have you ever been the outsider in a place that you thought you belonged? Have you ever been alienated for something over which you had no control over. None of the kids in that classroom had any control over whether they were black or whether they were white. Now, I really like Dr. King's speech, The Other America, because it really exemplifies what happened in our classroom. I'm going to encourage us, especially as we go through this first year after the inauguration of our new president, go back to Dr. King's speeches. He paints this portrait of this divided nation. In One America, he stated that people experience every day the opportunity of having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in all of their dimensions. But then he paints this other America where he talks about the ugliness of this other America. That in this other America, people find themselves perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. I think he painted well what was happening in my classroom. Events like the one I experienced are what motivated countless ancestors to reach for freedom. The idea of the beloved community was not easy to implement, but there was always the belief that in the midst of the work that we were doing, that we continue to be called to do, that God is in the midst of it, working in us, working through us, and at times working around us. And that the breaking in of God's kingdom, though it came with a price. And we know what the price is. We watch King, many of us, being assassinated. King's everyday portrait of racism and discrimination continues today. How racism and structural inequalities are enforced and validated over the next 4 years is uppermost in my mind. The president-elect promises large-scale deportation to start on Tuesday. Now, whether that happens or not, but it sets a precedent, right? So as we begin to think about the next 4 years, the question is, what are our signs of hope? And I think that's the power of today's celebration. As I was listening to Mrs. Phillips on the video, I thought, well, this is a hard act to follow because she had a really good, inspiring word for us. We come to events like this because it's actually, when we're in this space, it's almost like a respite, right? That this day of remembrance is a day when we get to recall the stories, not just of Dr. King, but of all of the people who were a part of the movement yesterday and today. And so today we take this time really to be encouraged, to remember that we are not facing anything more difficult than our ancestors faced. There are just new faces and new tricks to be analyzed and unpacked. So, I don't know about you, but I have listened to a lot of my friends since the election really grapple with, so how do I be present for the next 4 years? There are some people say, well, I'm just not gonna watch television. Well, we don't have that luxury, right? They're like, I actually have one friend who says, you know what, I'm just gonna stay home. I work remotely, I don't have to go out there. But that doesn't solve anything, right? Because one way that we align ourselves as justice seekers is by being intentional examiners of life and of ourselves. Sometimes we forget that Dr. King and those who were in the movement, this was not a luxurious existence. It was difficult. Dr. King talks a lot about what it means to live a life where you're not necessarily supported. You are alienated, you are ostracized. And one of the things that I was doing when I was preparing for this is I was looking intentionally at his spirituality. Because we know King the Prophet, right? Dr. King and all of his prophetic words. But there are times when he shows us he wasn't just the face of the movement, but the movement for him was the face. The movement was a construct where he was able to grow. And he demonstrates that when he preached a sermon at Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church in 1967. And the name of the sermon was Why Jesus Called a Man a Fool. And it was based on the Luke text of the rich man who stored his grain instead of sharing it with others. But towards the end of the sermon, Dr. King provides for us what I call his call narrative. And he stated, now of course I was religious, I grew up in the church, I am the son of a preacher, I am the great-grandson of a preacher, and the great-great-grandson of a preacher. My father is a preacher, my grandfather was a preacher, my great-grandfather was a preacher, and my only brother is a preacher also. And he said, but I didn't have much choice. But I had grown up in the church, and the church meant something very real to me, but it was a kind of a inherited religion, and I had never felt an experience with God. And so he goes on and talks about being called to serve as a president of the Montgomery Improvement and the repeated threats on his life and the members of his family. And then he says, well, but then one night, in the midnight hour, that he had received another threat, but this time, things were different. He was different. He was out of sorts and could not settle down, and so he got up, made coffee, and he began to worry, and he said, I got to the point where I couldn't take it any longer. He felt like he could not call his father, whom he always went to with his problems, but nor could he call upon his mother. And he knew that he needed to call on that power that can make a way out of no way. He stated, my religion had to become real for me, and I had to know God for myself, and so I bowed down over that cup of coffee, and I prayed a prayer, and I prayed out loud that night. I said, Lord, I am down here trying to do what is right. Now, I think I'm right. I think that the cause that we represent is right. But Lord, I must confess that I am weak now. I'm faltering. I am losing my courage. And it seemed at that moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth, and lo, I will be with you even until the end of this world. There are two gifts that Martin Luther King left with us, and one was the prophetic vision that he had that comes up time and time in his sermons. But he also had a grounded spirituality. And Dr. King used both to nurture visions of a movement that could restore a deep and abiding love for all of humanity. A world where the restoration of democracy and full citizenship of an economic system that could provide for everyone, and an end to war and militarization. King's dream tackled poverty and systemic inequality. Ultimately, his dream is the dream that we've been called to continue to carry forth. Now, his sermon not only recounts a deeply personal moment in King's life, but also embodies the essence of a lived, liberating faith, rooted in the pursuit of justice, and sustained by the empowering presence of God. Over the next 4 years, I think many of us will have those moments of feeling hopeless, wondering if what we're doing is making a difference. Have you ever had those moments when you just kind of say, you know, God, did you call me or did I call myself? And so I want to encourage us, as I said before, to intentionally go back to his sermons. Look at the letter from the Birmingham jail where he says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States cannot be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. And it was hard for me to read that and not think about immigration. King's words are still relevant for us today. In 2025, with renewed political and social challenges, including potential regression in civil rights, we face a now moment of great urgency, because King reminded us that we must use time creatively and forever realize that the time is always ripe to do right. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative song of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity. In 2025, we face a now moment. We are facing a moment of great urgency, and like King, we cannot afford to wait for a more convenient season to push against injustice. He continued to stress that now is the time. And so I ask you, as you continue to do your work, where do you go to discover signs of hope? How do you find meaning and hope in today's context? And I'm going to leave you with this last quote, which comes from this article, An Engagement of Hope. I thought it's a good quote to help us to remember the context of hope. Hope is not a dismissively fleeting aspiration. To hope is to challenge oneself to believe in what one does not know or see. Desmond Tutu has been famously quoted that hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. And Cornel West stated that while he does often feel despair, as a prisoner of hope, he suggests, never allow despair to have the last word. In essence, the concept of hope is not a superficial construct, but rather a complex response difficult to carry, such as virtuous hope, emphasizing the goodness of individuals. And Paulo Freire states, without a minimum of hope, we cannot so much as start the struggle. But without the struggle, hope as an ontological need dissipates, loses its bearings, and turns into hopelessness. And hopelessness can become tragic despair. And that is one of the reasons that direct action is partnered with a day of remembrance. We don't just talk about this, right? We continue to do something. And so King's argument is that we have a moral duty to challenge unjust laws, and that need of challenge continues today. So I leave you with the fact that now is the time to be that beacon of hope in the midst of hopelessness. And so even on those days when you falter, know how to go to that source which nurtures you, which encourages you, which sustains you, so that you can persevere. And always remember that strength can be drawn by recalling the stories, listening to the videos, so that we are reminded that all of the work is not in the past. Good work is still happening and will continue and is still needed. Thank you.
Hang around just one moment, Reverend Dr. Hawkins. I just want to thank you personally from all the people in Garner for your words of hope and encouragement here today, giving us a historical perspective. The work is not all in the past. The work is still ahead of us. Reverend King, Dr. King is not here with us, but through his words, through the heart, and through the love he's planted in all these people, we share the dream today. And thank you for telling the stories, helping us interpret the videos, and helping us remember why we're here. Thank you very much. One more time. We have another special guest, one of our own, and this is Miss Morgan Davis, a student at South Garner High School, for another special selection.
Children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. And show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who fulfilled my need. A lonely place to be. And so I learned to depend on me. And I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadows. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself, it is the greatest love of all. And I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. And show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. And I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadows. They can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. And I found the greatest love of all inside of me. And the greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself, it is the greatest love of all. And if by chance that special day that you've been dreaming of lead you to a lonely place, find your strength in love.
Wow, thank you very, very much, Morgan. That was fantastic. We really appreciate your contribution. We've been talking about dreams, we've talked about hope, we're talking about encouragement. Now we're going to get to some people here who have helped put this event together today and talk about the Dream in Action Award. Every dream is good, but it's just a dream until you put it in action. And that's what so many of you folks have done through the years, and just another recognition of the work that you've done here now. I'm going to ask Ms. Gina Avent, a member of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Celebration Committee, to come out and tell us a little of the history. And we might even be making the award tonight to someone who is doing some action to put the dream in place. Ms. Gina?
History of the Dream in Action Award. The Dream in Action Award is based on one of Dr. King's quotes. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Which was one of his recurring themes in his speeches and writings. Dr. King believed that true greatness comes from serving and helping others, and he consistently emphasized the need for individuals to make a positive impact in their communities. To honor his legacy, the Dream in Action Award is given to those persons whose selflessness, compassion, and activism create a better community. Created in January of 2012, this award has been presented to individuals, business owners, educators, and others who seek to honor Dr. King's legacy through service. Dr. Hurst Lane will now introduce the 2025 recipients of the Dream in Action Award.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Pastor Wolfgang. I'm the pastor at Lord of Life Lutheran Church here in beautiful Ghana. And I have the honor of introducing to you our two honorees this afternoon. They have a very easy time to answer Dr. King's question, what are you doing for others? Because both of them could make a very long list of all the things that they do for others. Mary Cook was an educator in Ghana area schools for 4 decades. She was a charter member at Lord of Life Lutheran Church 47 years ago. And it was at Lord of Life that she began her work as a coordinator for the Backpack Buddies program, which started there in 2009. It's a very, very beautiful program. It's a 3-way partnership between the Ghana Midday Rotary, they buy the food, between Lord of Life Lutheran Church, we store it at our church and our volunteers take care of it for the distribution, and the third partner is able to serve a day program for people with disabilities that shares space on our campus. So those 3 groups work together. And over the years, the program has grown, where now every week 180 meals are provided at all 9 Garner area schools for the children during times when they don't have school meals. Carlton McDaniel is the one who started Able to Serve. He's very well known. Back in 2003, he began a program out of the conviction that he had that people with disabilities are not only able to do things, they are able to serve others with the many gifts that God has given them. And so over the years, he has built that program into a wonderful, wonderful program that now serves 75 families and many people with disabilities every single day of the week as they gather together and serve others. And so, it is my honor this afternoon to present the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dream in Action Award, first to Mary Ahrensberger Cook. Mary, we're so proud of you. Thank you for all that you do.
Well, yes, this is a wonderful honor, and I thank you for that. It's kind of surreal to be standing here because over 55 years ago, I walked in the doors of this building as a fresh out of college special education teacher, and this is where I started my career. So it's
full circle, right?
Yes, full circle. But it's really gratifying to still, in a way, be serving the kids of Garner. So thank you.
Thank you. And Carlton, thank you for the wonderful leadership that you have shown over the years and for the many, many people that you have served through Able to Serve. Thank you.
I want to accept this on behalf of the participants at Able to Serve. We're so excited to serve this community every week, and very proud that with the partnership with the Lutheran Church and Midday Rotary, that since 2017 we packed over 21,000 bags for kids who are food insecure. So thank you.
And to the rest of you, thank you for all you do to serve others. And let me add that on February the 4th, Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the Town Council meeting, we will be honoring our two friends when the mayor will present another Dream in Action Award to them. Thank you so much.
Wow, look what folks in our hometown are doing. And you ain't seen nothing yet till you see Gifted Arts. They were born with gifts, but these kids have worked and worked and worked to polish their gift. There's more to it than just jumping out here and doing it. So saying no more, Gifted Arts.
Attention! To be or not to be empty!
Pick the wrong fight, pick the wrong night. And I ain't gonna be here for none of the pretty with these street lights. Got one eye on the scepter, keeping one eye on my blood. Enemies on the stretcher, down there breaking the next to the bug. Police set my trap, got the family in my block. Got my name up in their mouth, I'm the happiest shirt above. I'm on a whole nother level, standing up under the pressure, doing it better than veterans. I'ma take the throne, coming for the top. I'ma be a king Kong, ain't nobody stop. Y'all ain't ready for me, hey, hey. Y'all ain't ready for me, hey, hey. I'ma take the throne, coming for the streets. Starting in my blood, this is a living legacy. Y'all ain't ready for me, hey, hey. Y'all ain't ready for me, hey, hey. I'ma take the throne. Pops passed me this torch, gave me this fire, got me this horsepower. My fist glisten, I'm Superman in this high tower. I'ma run the business like a track star. Olympic golden chains on my neck, came through dripping with respect. Show me your pride and I humble it. Show me your castle, I crumble it. Kick on my feet and I stumble it, fumble it. Over the shit that I do on my sleeve, I'm ready to rumble it. Yeah, ready for whoever come with it.
It's one thing to hear the old timers talk about the old days and the stories behind, but to see the second, the third, the fourth generation of the kids picking up the enthusiasm, the hope, the dream, making their contribution and interpreting it in their own way is just really, really motivational. So thanks for everyone who helped with that. On the same note, one more time. I started sweating just watching them work out. But along the same line, here's three other folks, young folks from our two Garner High Schools, South Garner and Garner Magnet High. We have three of these folks who are going to help explain to us what Dr. King's dream means to them. We have Asa Winsman, Taylor Holloway, and Malik Berry. If you three would come out and take turns sharing that with us, and then we'll finish up. One of my favorite parts of the program is to see Mr. Dwight Rogers come back out with his interpretation of I Have a Dream. Let's hear the kids. Welcome to Garner, kids.
About a month ago, I was approached by my principal with nothing but a prompt. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. The first time I realized I was something other than just human was my first day of pre-K. I remember stepping into the classroom in my little uniform, my hair freshly picked out, excited to make new friends. That excitement faded quickly when a red-headed girl approached me singing Afro Circus. I didn't understand why it stung so much, but the next morning, I begged my mom to tie my hair back. Moments like these taught me early on that people may see me differently because of the kinks and curls in my hair. But they also planted a seed of determination in me, a determination to not let setbacks define me, but to use them as a source of growth. I've always been a dreamer. From a young age, I dreamed of accomplishing great things and didn't like the idea of being held back. My dad is white, my mom is African, and I embody that duality. My mother's side of the family is lively and full of love, with Eid celebrations ending in competitive dance competitions. My father's side is calm and reflected, with Thanksgiving dinners wrapping up in competitive games of Scrabble. Though their worlds couldn't be more opposite, I see my upbringing as a privilege. It has given me a unique perspective, one that celebrates diversity and bridges gaps. When I moved from Minnesota to Pinehurst, North Carolina, I felt out of place for the first time. I was one of only 4 black students in my whole school. Back in Minnesota, I never thought much about race, but in Pinehurst, I noticed how students group themselves, maybe unconsciously, by color. For a while, I stayed quiet, unsure of where I fit in. But slowly, I found my footing, starting with the one other black girl in class. As I grew more comfortable, I began to see the beauty in stepping outside of those invisible lines. I realized that making connections doesn't have to depend on where someone comes from or how they look, but on who they are. That realization didn't come without challenges. I'll never forget a debate I had in 5th grade about immigration. A boy stated, illegal immigrants should be deported because they're taking jobs. I argued that my mom, an immigrant herself, worked hard to support the economy, and that her value wasn't defined by her legal status. Moments like these taught me to stand up for what I believe in, even when it's uncomfortable. Through life's transitions, moving between majority white, diverse, and majority black schools, I learned how to navigate spaces, adapt, and embrace my identity without compromising who I am. I've seen firsthand how people's experiences can separate us, but I've also seen how understanding and respect can bring us together. I've also grown into someone who never stops striving. I'm proud to say that I'm actively involved at school, excelling academically, and I'm on my way to college to pursue my lifelong dream. These dreams are made possible because of the sacrifices of Black leaders like Dr. King, who paved the way for young people like me. Leaders who faced walls of no, so their children and grandchildren could walk through doors of opportunity. Dr. King's dream has shown me that dreaming big is not just a privilege, it's my responsibility. I'm able to dream because of the brave brothers and sisters who came before me, who refused to give up when the odds were against them. And so, I stand before you now, with my hair braided up, my edges laid, excitedly once again, not because I don't face challenges, but because I know that I have the strength, the courage, and the hope to face them head on. Thank you. Dr. King dreamed of a world where everyone, regardless of race, background, or status, would have an equal chance to succeed. To me, his dream shines brightest in the context of education. Education is the great equalizer, foundation of opportunity and progress, and yet, it's a system where inequality persists. Dr. King's vision challenges us to ensure that every child in every neighborhood has access to quality schools, passionate teachers, and the resources they need to thrive. It means creating classrooms where diversity is celebrated, not feared. It means tearing down barriers of poverty, discrimination, and underfunding that prevent so many from reaching their potential. For me, living Dr. King's dream is about fighting for fairness in education. It's about making sure that a child's zip code or skin color does not determine their future. It's about equipping with all students not only with knowledge, but with the confidence and opportunity to chase their dreams. Dr. King once said, "Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." As we work to fulfill his dream, we must strive to build an education system that nurtures both, empowering young minds not only to succeed, but also lead with compassion and purpose. Let's honor his dream by continuing to make equity in education not just a hope, but a reality. Thank you.
Hey, how we doing today? Good. Today, I stand before you to share what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legendary "I Have a Dream" speech means to me. His words, spoken with conviction and hope, reach far beyond the steps of the Lincoln Memorial where they were delivered. They echo through time, touching hearts and inspiring minds, including my own. When I hear Dr. King proclaim his dream of a nation where people are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, I'm reminded of the beauty of equality. His dream is not just his own, but a vision for all humanity. A reminder that we are bound together by our shared dignity and worth. To me, his dream serves as a call to action, urging us to see beyond our differences and recognize the humanity in each other. Dr. King's speech inspires me to reflect on my role in making his dream a reality. It challenges me to ask, am I doing enough to create a world where fairness and justice prevail? Am I standing up against discrimination and prejudice, whether in my community, my school, or even within myself? But more than just a challenge, the speech fills me with hope. Dr. King believed in the power of change. Even when the odds seem insurmountable, his words remind me that progress is possible when we come together with courage and determination. They encourage me to keep dreaming, even in the face of setbacks, and to keep working toward a future where justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. His vision of unity also resonates deeply within me. He dreamed of little black boys and little black girls joining hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. This image is not just a vision of racial harmony. It is a blueprint for a world where division is replaced by connection and hatred is replaced by love. Finally, Dr. King's speech is a beacon of resilience. It reminds me of the sacrifices made by those who fought for our civil rights, enduring violence and oppression for the sake of justice. Their courage compels me to honor their legacy by speaking up in the face of injustice, whilst being an ally to those who need support, working tirelessly for the ideals Dr. King so eloquently championed. To me, I Have a Dream is not a speech, but a timeless anthem of hope, a rallying cry for justice, and a personal reminder that each of us holds the power to change the world. So let us not merely listen to Dr. King's words, but live by them. Let us dream boldly and act bravely. Let us be the generation that fulfills his dream, so one day we too can proclaim with joy and pride, free at last, free at last. Thank you, God Almighty. We are free at last. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out. To God be the glory. It is an honor as well as a privilege to come before you to dramatize a speech and theory of a great man, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream. So I go back to the South, not in despair. I go back to the South, not with the feeling we are caught in a dark dungeon which will never lead to a way out. I go back believing that the new day is coming. So this afternoon, I have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a desert state sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression, will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day the state of Alabama, whose governor lips are presently dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, will be transformed into a situation where the little black girls and boys will be able to join hands with the little white girls and boys and walk together as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain will be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall sit together. This is our hope. This is the faith which I return to the south. With this faith, we'll be able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we'll be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we'll be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we'll be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country fields of thee, sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America's to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the hiking Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the Calvacious peaks of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black man and white man, Jews and Gentiles, Protestant Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Thank you.
Would you please rise in body or spirit for our benediction? May God inspire us to the kind of faith Dr. King talked about. The kind of faith that can hew, in his words, out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. The kind of faith that can transform the jangling discord of our nation and our people into a beautiful symphony of sisterhood and brotherhood. Lord, help us not drink from the cup of bitterness, but as we just heard, work together, sing together, walk together, pray together, be together, stand together, speak up together, that all may be free one day. All may be free one day as we come to sing, we shall overcome. Amen.
Y'all come on. We shall